The story happened late October of 2022. It was my senior year of high school. My girlfriend Jade and I decided to go to a party that was to celebrate our football season, which had recently just ended. I had played football for 8 years at this point, and Jade had been doing cheerleading for 10 years. We felt like we should attend to give a proper send-off to our respective sports. Plus, I knew the host pretty well. We'll call him Jake, because he was also on the team and he had the house all to himself. The plan was for me to be the designated driver for Jade, my friend who we'll call Michael, and his girlfriend who we'll call Morgan, who were also coming along with us. Michael lives 2 cities away. Him and his family moved his senior year, and he decided to just finish high school in our city. Besides the main downtown area that's our state capital, our cities aren't very big, so Michael was only a 20-minute drive. This is important for later. Halloween was right around the corner, so that was the theme of the party. I went as Jack Skellington, just wearing the suit, and had Jane do my makeup to look like a skeleton while she went as Sally. Michael went as Chucky, and Morgan went as his bride. I'm like 90% sure her name is Tiffany, but if I'm wrong, I apologize. Anyways, we go to the party and a lot more people than I expected showed up. Basically the entire cheer squad, almost the entire football team, and even people from our rival high school, their football team and their cheer squad there as well. And like what you would expect from a typical high school party. People didn't know how to control their drinking, and well, things got really rowdy. I was playing a tag team beer pong game with Michael against 2 other friends when a familiar voice called my name. I turned to look, and it was a kid from our high school who we'll call Bob, wearing a Jason mask and his usual hoodie with jeans. Now, Bob was an odd specimen to say the least. I met him in my first term history class when he randomly came up to me and started talking to me. From the start, I could tell that he wasn't very good at socializing. Being on the football team, people expect me to be stuck up, but I try to be very open and nice with everyone, so I got to know him pretty well in that class. A little too well, in fact. He would openly tell me and my other friends in class about his frustrations about being single and a virgin, and how desperate he was to lose his virginity. He also didn't really know how to read a room or pick up on social cues. He also would talk like we've been buddies forever, and would make really unusual or out-of-pocket jokes. He also had really well-off parents. Both of them drove sports cars, and he lived in a huge house. Despite this though, he would wear the same clothes almost every day and had really long, greasy hair. He would also start high-fiving me in the hallway, which wasn't a big deal because it was just one more person to high-five on my way to class. Well, not long after that, I knew someone who went to junior high with him, and Jade told me how he had the biggest crush on her in junior high, and how he was only trying to be friendly with me to get closer to her. That didn't make much sense to me at the time, so I try not to look at him differently, but the thought had always lingered in my head. Especially since when he would high-five me, Jade was always there, and he would try to stick around a little longer and always include himself in the conversation. Again, I had no problem with this, especially because he wasn't stalking me 24/7. It's just at times I found it mildly annoying and creepy. He started small talk and I had tried to answer his questions as much as I could, but to be honest, I was way more focused on the beer pong game. He left me alone after a while. The party started to die down and I was sitting in a circle with some teammates reminiscing over our times on the team and talking about how we'd really miss it when I decided to rally my group and head out. Jade was sitting in a circle of her own with the cheer team maybe 5 feet away from me, probably doing the same thing, so gathering her wasn't that hard. The hard ones to find were Michael and his girlfriend. I tried calling Michael, but he didn't answer, and I didn't have his girlfriend's number. Our first assumption was that they were probably just making out or something in a bedroom. So we went about the house knocking on door to door, opening them and seeing if there was anyone there, then shutting the door. Bob saw me and Jade appear into our room and close the door when he then came up to us and said, "Whoa, what are you guys trying to do in there?" in a joking tone that just came off as creepy and awkward. I asked him if he'd seen our friend and he just replied no, so we kept looking. Bob then started following us around, which I was starting to get annoyed with. I eventually found Michael in the bathroom puking his guts out in the toilet with his girlfriend. While he was finishing up, I went to my friend Jake and thanked him for his hospitality, and I offered to come over the next day to help him clean up. He said it was okay, that he actually had some people spending the night, including his girlfriend, who was going to help him in the morning. I still told him I would stop by if he needed help. We were heading to my car when I had then heard Bob say, "Hey man, could you give me a ride?" I was a little annoyed because I was already pretty tired, and I already had to drive out of the way to drop off Michael, Morgan, and Jade, but I just said yes anyways because I'm nice. I also didn't mind driving up to his neighborhood because there were a lot of nice houses, and around the Halloween season they're really fun to look at. I dropped him off first and started to drive to Michael's, which was now probably going to be a 25-minute drive, and it was already around 2:30 a.m. at this point. Morgan was spending the night at his house, so after dropping them off, I had started to drive back to our city. Jade had offered spending the night because I was tired, and I thanked her profusely. We got to my house, and after I changed and washed off as much of the makeup as I could, I just about crashed in my bed. I woke up to Jade in the bathroom that connected to my room. She apologized for waking me up and then laid down next to me. After a couple of seconds, she then got up and asked if I heard that. I listened and heard footsteps right above my window well. My room is in the basement of my house, so the footsteps would be in our backyard in the west alleyway between our house and our gate and fence. "It's probably just raccoons," I said. "No, they sound too heavy to be a raccoon," Jade then said. "It's probably just bear," I said, referring to my 100-pound Malamute. "No, we locked his doggy door, remember?" she asked. "He has a special doggy door that only opens when it senses this fob that we keep on our dog's collar. This keeps the raccoons out. It also had an option to completely lock, so even with the fob, the door won't open. I didn't remember locking it, but I also didn't have an answer, so I just stayed silent." She then got up. "Where are you going?" I asked, and she then replied that she was going to check if it really was bear. I would really feel bad if I had let her go check it out alone. On my way up the stairs to the first floor, I saw my dog sleeping in front of the basement door, so it couldn't have been him. But now I was curious, so I go to our backyard door and opened it and then stepped out onto the porch. I looked around and couldn't really see much from on the porch with the porch light, so I stepped down and started investigating with my phone flashlight. I could see the glow of my LED lights through my window and didn't really see anything else. That's when an animatronic in my west side neighbor's backyard went off, scaring me. It was some sort of crypt keeper thing that has green glowing eyes and talks. My neighbors love Halloween, so they have decorations in their front and backyard. I jumped and this caused me to speedily walk back inside. Jade had asked me if I saw anything, and I just said no because I really didn't. We got back into my bed and I fell asleep. I woke up again in the middle of the night to the sounds of the animatronic going off yet again. I just assumed it was a motion sensor or something, and it was picking up a stray cat or raccoons, then went back to sleep. I woke up again in the middle of the night because of my LED lights. I like having them on while I try to sleep, but after I sleep they really bother me, and mine doesn't have a timer. I heard the animatronic again, but this time when I turned off the lights, I was surprised to see my window well glowing green. We have barred covers over them so that nothing can get down in them, but the well was glowing green and it sounded like the animatronic was right above my well. I was now freaked out. I don't know how Jade stayed asleep, but I laid there scared to move or anything. Eventually it stopped. I just sat there for a while awake trying to calm down. I thought that it had to be someone messing with me, so after scrolling through my phone a bit to get tired again, I fell back to sleep. I woke up the next morning and saw my LED lights were still off, so I definitely wasn't dreaming about it last night. While Jade was getting ready, I called Michael to see if he was messing with me. He didn't answer. He was probably still asleep from being hammered last night. I then realized, why would Michael drive all the way over to my house drunk just to mess with me? I know his girlfriend wouldn't drive him either because she's more of a homebody type. Then it hit me. Our neighbors have a son who's my age. In fact, he played on the football team as well, and I knew him very well. I called him, and I was actually surprised when he answered. I started telling him about the animatronic scaring me while I was outside, but I didn't mention the part to him about it being above my well. I wanted him to think that I just slept through it, and that he went through all that work just for me to sleep through it like a baby. Well, he then told me that all of the animatronics should be unplugged because he and his family are out of town for the weekend, and that they wanted to prevent an electrical fire or anything of that nature. I've known him for a while, and I know that he can't lie very well, so this really caught me off guard. I also realized that I didn't see him at the party, so he really was probably out of town. I asked if I could go over and just make sure that they were unplugged. I texted Michael to call me when he was awake. Jade was finished and she said she would come along because she wanted to hang out with Jake's girlfriend. I explained how we have to go over nearby to check on all the animatronics, and she came with me. I went straight to the skeleton one to see if it was plugged in. It was unplugged. I followed the wire up and down at least 3 times just to make sure I was holding the right unplugged wire. I was. When we got there, the mess was already picked up besides a few cups. I went down to the basement to get another box of garbage bags with Jake, and I then saw a Jason mask on the floor. I picked it up and it was Bob's. The events of last night hit me. The footsteps, the skeleton. I wondered if it was Bob in my backyard. I thought there was no way. He doesn't even know where I live. He also isn't very coordinated, so seeing him carry an animatronic is just something that I couldn't even imagine. We did find it weird though how we would find his mask in the basement of the house, the one part that was off limits. Michael called me later in the day. I explained everything to him, and he was adamant that it wasn't him. I still don't know if those footsteps were connected with the animatronic, and I still don't know if Bob was even connected to those events. After that though, he had started acting even more strange. Either that or my mind really was open to how odd he was. Either way, as Halloween comes up, those neighbors have continued to put the Crypt Keeper in their front yard, and I still wonder to this day what happened on that chilly October night. The year of 2003 was a tough one for my family and I. My mother and father had just gone through a divorce, and my father was working late one Halloween night. I was 14 and my sister was 7, so my dad trusted me to take my little sister Emily trick-or-treating. When Emily and I had gotten back from school, I had noticed a piece of paper on my mailbox. It was just a piece of paper that said, "I would die for you." As you can imagine, this gave me the chills, so I brought it in to show my dad, but he wasn't home. He must have left the house early for work, so I decided to just throw it away and not let Emily know about it. That night, our plan was to go out and hit every house and get more candy than ever. We went out and we had a very fun time, and I even ran into some friends. We were on our walk back home when we had heard a voice coming from someone's house. "Hey kids, hey, come over here," a man said. We looked around and we didn't see anyone until Emily grabbed me and then screamed and pointed at the window. There was a man dressed like a clown. "Come in. I have Play-Doh and I have any candy here you can imagine." We then ran as fast as we could down the road screaming until we finally made it home. Once I got home, I realized that our front door wasn't just unlocked, but wide open. I remember saying hello a few times until I figured that maybe the wind just blew our door open. We sat in the living room and tried to just forget all about our encounter with the strange clown in the window. We were counting our Halloween candy and watching Hocus Pocus until we had heard someone knock at the door. We knew that it couldn't be our dad and knew for a fact that it wasn't our mom. "Who's there?" I said. There was a long pause until the person responded, "I'm Jesus Christ." I'm here to save you from the evil of Halloween." Emily screamed, and we then ran into our dad's room with the door locked. I tried calling our dad a few times, but he wouldn't answer. Then we saw a figure near the window of my dad's room. It was a person standing there in a suit with a pig's mask. "It's okay. I'm Jesus, and I died for the sins of the children," he said. We then hid behind our father's bed and were scared shitless. We could hear him tapping the window and humming some strange song. "Let me in or I'll slit my wrist tonight when I watch you sleep," he said. We both just laid on the floor shaking in fear. Emily had started to cry, and I had to stay strong for her. After a while, the man had left, but my sister and I still stayed in the same spot behind our dad's bed for over an hour until my dad got home. We told him what happened, and he didn't even really care or listen much. He just wanted to rest after a long day of work. The very next day, we had a disc on our front porch. It was a blank DVD disc that had "Do not watch unless you love Jesus" written all over it with Sharpie. I went into my room and started watching it on my PlayStation 2. It was some of the scariest and disturbing imagery I had ever seen. It was just very disturbing images of a very, very tall man walking in the woods on stilts in a suit. The video would cut with a VHS static effect to a silhouette of a man in a field on a cross. It would just keep cutting to random disturbing images. One other image I remember was in black and white of an extremely overweight man in bed with a ton of white face paint eating out of a tub of ice cream with his bare hands. The video had no other sound than a slight static sound in the background. I gave the DVD to my dad and told him what had happened, and he said he would take a look. That was the last I'd ever seen of that DVD, and my dad never mentioned anything of it again. He told me that he just threw it away and didn't really get a chance to watch it. I guess if my dad didn't care, then neither should I. I wonder who that could have been and why they wanted to scare a child so damn badly. Were they really dangerous, or were they just playing some really sick prank? I guess I'll never know. The year of 2014 was one of my favorite times in my life. I had just graduated high school, got my first job, and was ready for life to really begin. My high school buddies and I were still very close since we all lived in the same area. We kept our weekend shenanigans for as long as we could, until sometime in our early 20s when we all parted ways. Some of those memories we made really have a special place in my heart, but there's one incident that will rest in my memory in the most unsettling way. It was early October of 2014, and my friends and I were really excited for all of the fun we would get into during the Halloween season. There were tons of parties, haunted houses, as well as bonfires throughout the season. One night, me and two friends and their girlfriends were looking for something spooky to get into. It was myself, my buddy James, his girlfriend Morgan, and Trevor and his girlfriend Allison. I was the single guy of the group, and it never really bothered me to be the fifth wheel when hanging out with them. Trevor mentioned this old cemetery in our town that we were all familiar with. The cemetery was really creepy since there was an Indian burial ground smack in the middle of it. Our plan was to use one of those stupid ghost hunting apps, drink beer, smoke some pot, and just hang out and maybe see if something creepy would happen if we were lucky. When we arrived, there were no lights in the cemetery, and it was very dark. The cemetery was closed and gated, so we had to jump a fence to get in. I led the way with my iPhone flashlight since the other two guys were comforting their scared girlfriends. We were having a good time until Allison swore that she saw someone. We all thought she was full of it, but she swore there was a person in the woods. This really creeped me out, but I didn't let it bother me. I was young and overly confident in my ability to kick someone's ass if placed in a bad situation, so I played the tough guy. "Don't worry, Allison. If there's someone actually out there, trust me, they don't want to mess with us, and I'll make damn sure of it," I said with a smirk. After a few minutes of ghost hunting, we all then heard a cough come from the top of the burial ground. It was hard to see up there since it was dark, and a big tree stood right on top of it. I wanted to be the hard ass of the group, so I had started walking close to it. "Hello?" I said as I started to walk up the hill. I heard and saw nothing, so I started to turn around. Then as I was heading back to my group of friends, we all heard the sound of an acoustic guitar playing. We all froze in silence and listened. We started to follow the music and we could hear the man singing a song about a skeleton. The lyrics were something like, "Poor skeleton, I've waited for you. Poor skeleton, I'll take you home." The girls were far behind as they refused to go anywhere near the music. Trevor stood back with them as James and I went to go see who would be playing music in a cemetery this late at night. We hid behind a tree as we watched a skinny middle-aged man with a fedora play a song. He was alone, and it seemed like he thought he was the only one in the cemetery. He then stopped playing and then just stared at the tree where we were hiding. I decided not to startle the guy, so I stepped from behind the tree. "Hey man, I heard your music and I wanted to get a listen. Sounds good," I said as he just continued to stare at us. "We were just ghost hunting and having some beer. We hope you don't mind," I said to him. The man just sat there still as a statue and just stared at us. I still get chills whenever I think of him just sitting there in the pure darkness right next to a grave. You couldn't see his face since the fedora mostly covered it. We began walking back to the girls and Trevor when we then heard the man then say, "Yeah, sure." James and I just stood there. When we turned around, he was in the same spot but standing. "What was that?" James said. The man started running towards us, and in an instant reaction, we ran off. The rest of our friends saw us running and thought we were just messing around. "Let's go, we have to go," I said. "He's coming after us." Trevor and the girls just laughed and made jokes. They thought we were kidding until they then saw him appear from the darkness. "This is my cemetery," the man said. "You think you belong here? You think you can laugh and make fun of me?" We stood there frozen in fear. "You better stay the hell away from us, man," I told him. He then ran straight towards us as I held my fist up ready to hit him. He came really close to us, then jetted to the right straight into the woods. He just kept going until we couldn't see him. The five of us ran to the fence and then left. The next day, I asked my mom if she knew of anyone who owned that cemetery, and she said that the owners are usually there during the week just cutting the grass, and I should report what happened to them. Trevor and I went by a few days later and got to speak with the groundskeeper. We told him what happened and he told us that we shouldn't be going to the old cemetery after hours. He lectured us for a short while, then addressed the concern that we had about the man. He told us they've caught all kinds of strange activity going on there at night. He said the most common are Satanists that come from the city at night and try performing odd rituals at the cemetery. He told us that he suspects the man to be a local who lives with his parents. He described the guy as an oddball who likes to walk around the cemetery during the day with no business being there. His description of the man was also pretty spot on from what I could remember seeing. I still to this day have not found out who that man might have been, but knowing now what I already know, I will never return to that cemetery at night.